Good morning, everyone. Pete Pardo here from Sea of Tranquility. Welcome to another edition of Classic Album Rewind, the show we have done each and every day here in June 2021, where we take a look at a classic album by a classic band that perhaps gets overshadowed just a little bit by the big daddy, the big brother, the big sister, the iconic album that came before it. Today is no different. Today we're looking at an album released June 22nd, 1987, recorded at West Side Studios in London, England, on the EMI label, produced by Chris Kimsey. I am talking about Marillion's Clutching at Straws. All right, the second concept album in a row from this band, which follows what many people consider their absolute masterpiece, Misplaced Childhood. Of course, this is the third and the fourth album with a guy named Derek Dick, otherwise known as Fesh, as the lead singer. He would leave shortly after the Clutching at Straws album, the live album, all right, and then he would be gone to solo career. A guy named Steve Hogarth comes in, and he has been the front man for the band ever since. But we've got these four albums, and specifically, we're talking about this one here now. So this, of course, is the lineup. The original classic lineup of the band. Fesh on lead vocals, Stephen Rothery on guitars, Mark Kelly on keyboards, Pete Trewavas on bass, who's also, of course, in Transatlantic now, and Ian Mosley on drums. All right, so this is a very kind of autobiographical tale written by Fesh, kind of about the down-and-out rock star, right? Sitting at the bar, drinking his sorrows away, the whole story of, being a celebrity is not all it's cracked up to be, that sort of thing, right? Fesh was actually having issues with Marillion's fame at the time. One of the reasons why he left the band was that he felt they were getting too big. Actually, Marillion was really not that huge of a band, but they were starting to get bigger and bigger. And I think he, although he seemed early on like a guy who loved the spotlight, hanging out with the rock stars, living the life, deep down inside, that really proved to be not something he was all that interested in. So, of course, he left the band to pursue a solo career, a little bit more of a mellower kind of state of mind, I guess, right? The big tours and, all the parties and all that kind of stuff. He kind of walked away from that. And really at the same time, Marillion never really became that big, huge band, right? They were kind of on that trajectory, but then once I think the Hogarth era started, they became, again, here we are in the 90s, and, progressive rock, not really the big thing it had maybe hinted at times during the 80s, although prog rock, obviously, we've seen have, started up a nice resurgence in the 90s, although not at a major level, right? So Marillion kind of became, in the 90s and onwards, that veteran band, all right? Kind of like, Yes and Genesis were the decade or so before. Marillion became one of those bands, along with IQ and Pendragon and Palace, right? That kind of like that second wave of prog rock veterans, right? The leaders, right? So, but back to the album. So here, a genius album. This is actually my favorite Marillion album of all time, and I think doesn't get enough credit for the greatness that's contained on this album. So, and most of the album kind of really segues into each other. All the tracks kind of tell a story, and it flows really, really nicely. It's not an overly upbeat album, okay? But again, most of the Marillion catalog, the first half of the catalog, the Fesh era, is kind of like that. It's darker, it's definitely atmospheric and somber at times, and this album is no exception. But very, very memorable tracks, even though this album is best taken as a whole. Starts off with the gorgeous but kind of foreboding Hotel Hobbies. Okay. A lot of really cool Mark Kelly keyboards. Fesh is basically kind of like, telling the tale, lurking in the shadows. That moves into Warm Wet Circles, which is a little more upbeat. All right. Some outstanding vocals this is my favorite vocal performance from him, is on this song, actually. Warm Wet Circles. In a warm wet circles, like a mother's kiss. It's amazing. I could sit here and just sing the whole song. I love it so much. An outstanding track filled with drama and passion and emotion. All right, great guitar soloing from Stephen Rothery. Just an amazing song. That goes into That Time of the Night, all right? Those playful Fish lyrics and vocals, totally there. From there, we go into Just for the Record. Again, another gorgeous melody. Really nice prog track. Again, this album is, they have more complex stuff in their catalog, but this album just has that mood and that passion and that energy, which is just so Marillion from this time period. And then, of course, the last song on side one of the album, first half of the CD, is the wonderful White Russian. Easily a top 3 song on this album. White Russian, those great guitar chords from Stephen Rothery. Again, Fish just killing it. Ian Mosley just knocking it out on the drums. Fantastic song. Fantastic song. That leads into side 2. Okay? Side 2 kicks off with perhaps the one song on this album that almost doesn't fit. All right? It definitely, the tone of Incommunicado is completely different from everything else that's on here. In fact, I'd argue that Incommunicado might have sounded more at home on either Script for a Jester's Tear or Fugazi. It's big. It's bursting with energy. It's got those amazing keyboards. And then you got Fish comes out and he does this whole it's really unlike everything else that's on this album. But in a way, that's almost perfect for this album, because I think because of the kind of, like I said, the somber feel of much of the album, Incommunicado comes right about the halfway point, and it gives you like a little bit of relief from everything else that's going on. So in that aspect, it's perfect where it is. Great song. Killer, upbeat, up-tempo prog rock song. From there, we go to Torch Song. Again, great chords from Rothery. Really cool song. Then, of course, you got the emotional Slanchmath, or however they say it. I always say it wrong. Wonderful song. Wonderful song. Man, Fish just pouring his guts out through this one. And then, for many people, perhaps, a lot of people pick Sugar Mice. Sugar Mice in the Rain. What an emotional roller coaster Sugar Mice is. I mean, just... so many great songs on this album, man. Uzi's on the street corner. Oh, man. The Last Straw comes up next. And then, of course, Happy Ending. It's a genius of an album. And I always, when you talk about the all-time great concept albums, I actually rank this one pretty high all the time. That this, for many, many years, and it still is one of my all-time favorite albums. It's certainly my favorite from the Marillion catalog. It's my favorite prog album from probably the 80s, I would say. Or if it's not my favorite, it's a top 3. You got, of course, Moving Pictures and 90125 and a handful of others. But this is definitely up there. Just so good. I often talk about how I like darker themed albums sometimes. And this is a perfect example of one of them. I like the kind of toned down, darker, more somber kind of characteristic of this entire album. I think it really, really works. And to me, this is basically just Fish pouring it all out there before he moves on to other things. And he probably wouldn't have had it any other way, right? So if you haven't heard this album, Clutching at Straws is a absolute classic, a monster of an album that should have been a bigger album than it was. But, unfortunately, we're looking at, if you look at when it was released, you can kind of understand why. They had some momentum going with this one, thanks to a couple, to Lavender and Kaylee, I think. Even though this overall is not a very, big accessible album for the masses, but I think that those two songs helped with a little bit of radio airplay. This one, a different beast, I think, altogether. But both great. Both fantastic, both classic albums, but today the rewind is all on Clutching at Straws. So if you haven't listened to it, please go check it out. Report back, let us know what you think. If you are pretty familiar with it, hit that rewind button, play it again, and tell us why you love it and all that good stuff. And that is my pick for today. Visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter, of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. We got more classic album rewinds coming up for the rest, each and every day for the rest of the month. Geez, we only got, one more day? But I'm going to continue for a little bit. So I'm going to continue classic album rewind for maybe a week, and then I'm going to move into another thing for the remainder of July. And I'll just tell you right now, this was an idea from one of our viewers, and that's going to be A through Z, favorite band that begins with each letter of the alphabet. Each day you're going to get a different one, and I'll pick my favorite album from each of the bands in question. So A through Z coming up, starting in first, obviously, you know how many letters of the alphabet, so we got to kind of figure it all out there. But so that'll be coming up as soon as we kind of end the Classic Album Rewind show. And lots more stuff coming up, guys. So stay tuned. We have tonight in the Prague seat with Team A, our favorite 5 solo albums from guys from the big Prague 5. We know who they are, right? Yes, Genesis, King Crimson, Pink Floyd. You know them all, right? So that's coming up tonight, as well as tonight. Lynn Versace and I have rescheduled. Tonight, Lynn and I will be ranking the studio albums of the Steve Morse Band, and top 10 songs of ABBA. So that's happening tonight. Thursday, the Monsters Den with Rich Catino and Chris Allo. To remake or not to remake is the topic of the day. And then Friday morning at the Fun House with Martin Popoff, the albums that we really dig that most people seem to hate. Okay, so that's coming up. Stay tuned for all that and more. And visit us on the web at www.seatranquility.org. We're on Facebook, we're on Twitter. Of course, we're here on YouTube all the damn time. See you real soon. Have a good one. Bye-bye.